We can never separate the manger from the cross. This baby came into the world ultimately to give his life for the guilty. The king was born to die for his people. But make no mistake, he came to be king. He came to be my king. He came to be your king. He came to be God's appointed king.
Welcome to Encounter the Truth with Jonathan Griffiths. I'm Steve Hiller. Glad you're with us. And Jonathan, around this time of year, we recognize the fact that Jesus came. He was born as a baby, laid in a manger, and this baby came from heaven ultimately to die on a cross, what we think of celebrating during the Easter season. But maybe we've not necessarily thought about Jesus as king. Why would we want to do that? And what's so significant about thinking of Jesus as king?
Well, there are plenty of indications in the Christmas story that Jesus came to be king, but it's not necessarily the first thing we talk about or we think about at Christmas, because our image is of him lying in a manger. And of course, that's a beautiful image at the heart of the story. But the biblical narrative does point us to the kingship of Jesus. And so when the wise men, and we remember the wise men, when the wise men come from the east to Jerusalem, they say, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." The wise men knew they were looking for a king. They were waiting for the king. And in fact, the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, were waiting for their promised king. And the gospel writers, the New Testament accounts, they want us to know that Jesus did come as God's promised king. But knowing that and seeing that, his life of humility and service is all the more striking and all the more surprising, actually. And the Bible wants us to know, God wants us to know, that Jesus is perhaps not the kind of king we anticipated or expected, but he is God's appointed king.
Well, let's continue to look at this today. From the book of Matthew, we're in chapter 2 with a message simply called King. Here is Jonathan.
I want to ask you, I wonder what images or words come to mind when you consider the child of Christmas. I guess on Christmas Eve, our thoughts naturally turn to the manger, to the star, to the stable, to a helpless baby in the arms of a young mother on a night so very long ago, really in a backwater of the Roman Empire, in a corner of the ancient territory of Israel in the town of Bethlehem. Famous hymn writer Charles Wesley began one of his hymns with the words, "Gentle Jesus, meek and mild." And I guess that seems to us like quite a good summary. Yes, that is the baby of Christmas that appears to our mind's eye on this Christmas Eve. And of course, those connections, they are all right and true and accurate. Jesus Christ came to this earth as a baby. He was laid in a manger. He came in weakness and he came in vulnerability. But at the same time, weakness and vulnerability are not the whole story when it comes to the baby of Christmas. Gentle Jesus, meek and mild, is not the whole picture when it comes to him. This Christmas season, we've been giving consideration together to the names of Jesus that we learn in the Christmas story, the great names of his that we are told in the Gospels as we read of him. Thus far this season, we've thought together about the name Jesus and what it means. We've given consideration to what it means for him to be the Christ. We've thought together about the name Emmanuel and its wonderful significance. And today on Christmas Eve, we come to a name that may not be the first name to come to mind for any of us, but a name and a title that is central to the identity and to the mission of this child, and that title is King. King. This title of Jesus is found not on the lips of his parents or of an angel, not even on the lips actually of an Israelite, but on the lips of wise men who came from a foreign land, who came from the east, who saw a star in the night sky, a star that they felt sure must signal the birth of a king. The account is recorded for us in Matthew chapter 2, and I'd like to read it briefly for us. This is Matthew chapter 2. Follow the story with me. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? It was a well-known fact at that time that the people of Israel were waiting for the arrival of their Savior King promised from of old. The scriptures had prophesied that their Messiah would come to them, and the nation had been waiting. And when these Magi, these wise men from the east, saw an unusual bright star lighting up the night sky over Israel, they knew that this must mean that Israel's promised king had come. You know, it's a really interesting feature of royalty that you can look at a baby in their crib and know that because of their birth, they are destined to rule. When little Prince George was born to Prince William and Catherine, the world knew that George would one day be king. He himself didn't know it, of course. He wasn't aware, but we knew, the world knew. As is traditional for royal births, a little easel was placed in the forecourt of Buckingham Palace announcing the birth of the future king. The bells of Westminster Abbey were rung. 21-gun salutes sounded in Commonwealth capitals around the world. The baby was born to rule. The bright star that illuminated the night sky 2,000 years ago was a sign of what the angel had said. This is heaven's son. This child has come with the power of the Holy Spirit. He is a royal prince. He will indeed be king. Now, when all this took place, another king heard about it, King Herod, a king put in place by the Romans to rule Israel on their behalf. He was a kind of puppet king, not truly Israel's own king. And so the news for him that Israel's true king had been born, this wasn't welcome news for Herod. It was no cause for celebration for him, and an evil plot was already forming in his mind. He needed to find this baby. He needed to find him quickly. And so Herod, he got the religious and legal experts together, and he asked, "Where is this promised king to be born?" Well, they said, "Bethlehem." And they read for him a key prophecy from the Old Testament book of Micah, the one written here in Matthew for us, the one that makes it clear. "And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." The ruler, the baby of Bethlehem. He came to be the ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. That's the promise. That's the prophecy. And that tells us the kind of ruler that Jesus came to be. A shepherd who would care for a needy people, a shepherd who would guide a lost people, one who would ultimately give his life for a guilty people. That is, of course, where this story of this king would lead. The baby of the manger would give his life on the cross of Calvary. And he would do so for the salvation of his people, of the people he came to lead and to rule. You see, we can never separate the manger from the cross, even on Christmas Eve. We're mindful that this baby came into the world ultimately to give his life for the guilty. The king was born to die for his people. That's the kind of king he would be, a shepherd king, a saving king. This is a ruler like none other, a ruler unlike any other ruler the world has ever seen. But make no mistake, he did come to rule. He came to be king. He came to be my king. He came to be your king. He came to be God's appointed king. Now, I want to pause on that just briefly. I want to think about it for a second together, because this simple fact is so important to the message of Christmas, but at the same time, it is so very easily overlooked. You see, you and I, we look upon the child of Christmas and we think of the beauty of his story, of the simplicity of his coming. We think of the gentleness and vulnerability of the child, gentle Jesus, meek and mild. And of course, all those things are true and are wonderful about the Christmas story. But when we think about this story, it is all too easy for us to place Jesus in the wrong role, to imagine that he came for some other purpose than to rule and to reign.
You're listening to Encounter the Truth with Jonathan Griffiths and a message called King. It is the final message in our series, Name Above All Names. And we'll get back to this look at Matthew chapter 2, verse 2 in just a few moments, so I hope you'll stay with us. By the way, if you ever miss a broadcast, you can come and listen online. Our website is encounterthetruth.org, or you can listen through the Encounter the Truth app. That's free. You're going to find that at your app store. That's a great way to listen to Jonathan's teaching on the go. Or again, you can come and listen online at encounterthetruth.org. Well, Encounter the Truth is listener-supported. It is your giving, your generosity that keeps Jonathan's teaching on this station. And as you give a gift of any amount this month, we want to send you not one, but 2 copies of Jonathan's book, Light of the World. Jonathan, why 2 copies?
Oh, that's simple, Steve. We want you to be able to read one copy, and we want you to be able to give away the other copy. It's our hope that this book can get into the hands of people who don't yet know Jesus, who haven't entered into the joy of Christmas because they don't yet know the message of Christmas. And we'd love for you to get hold of these 2 copies, read one yourself, and enjoy thinking again about what it means for Jesus to be the light of the world, the light that came down and entered into the world at Christmas. But then prayerfully consider, who can I give this to? And then maybe follow up and have a conversation with them over coffee about how they enjoyed the book and maybe what struck them from the book. We hope this can be a real tool for engaging with unbelieving friends and family this Christmas with the good news of Jesus.
Well, again, we want to send you not 1, but 2 copies of Jonathan's book, Light of the World, as our way of saying thank you for your financial support. You can find out more or give online at encounterthetruth.org or call us at 833-998-7884. Again, our website is encounterthetruth.org and our phone number is 833-99-TRUTH. Well, if you joined us a little bit late, we're in the book of Matthew, chapter 2, as we continue our message called King. Here's Jonathan.
My wife's grandmother, who has now passed away, took a great interest in family history. And she spent a number of years actually tracing the family tree back a number of centuries. And she found all kinds of very interesting connections. That's what happens when you dig down a family tree and into the family history. Maybe someone in your family has done this for you. In any event, she discovered one ancestor who was a very, very colorful figure, a man who was the 2nd Duke of Buckingham in England. This duke, he was born into very great wealth, but he managed to lose all his money, and he was declared bankrupt with a debt of £1 million in the year 1841, which was something of an achievement all round, really. The country house he inherited at his birth was actually the largest house in all of England. It was a very beautiful mansion with 400 rooms. When all the money ran out, the bankruptcy court sent bailiffs to the house to seize all the assets. As legend has it, when the bailiffs arrived, the Duke was in the middle of throwing a very grand party. But because there was no money, there weren't actually enough staff to pull off the very grand show. In particular, that night they were short of footmen. And somehow the Duke, in his charm, managed to convince the bailiffs to hold off the removal of the furniture and the artwork for a few hours until the party was all finished. And instead, somehow, he managed to convince the bailiffs actually to stick around, to pitch in and to help out. If you can believe this, according to legend, he actually managed to convince the court bailiffs to put on staff uniform, to put on the livery of the footmen, and to play the part of servants for the evening before carrying off all the furniture to auction. Those who came as representatives of the court of law were treated as household staff for the night. I don't know how the Duke pulled that off, but all credit to him. One of the things that you and I need to learn about Jesus Christ is that he has not come to this world to join our personal staff. He has not come here to do our bidding, to be our personal assistant, to further our own agenda, much as we might like him to. He may have come in meekness, he is gentle, and he is very kind. But here is what we must see, and here is what we must understand. He was born to rule, and he has come to reign. Even if you and I might overlook that fact or forget it, it was crystal clear to the people within this wonderful drama, in the narrative that Matthew recounts for us. It was clear to the wise men, and it was clear to Herod as well. And these two, Herod and the wise men, they actually give us a window into the ways in which we can respond ourselves to this royal child, to the one born to be king. King Herod, for his part, he reacted in the most remarkable way. He reacted with fear. He reacted with resentment. Ultimately, he reacted with hatred. He showed some curiosity about the child, yes, but actually what he wanted was to find the child in order that he might destroy the child. And soon in the story, an angel would come to Mary and Joseph to warn them that Herod was dead set on destroying the baby. Something within Herod's heart hated the fact that Jesus came as God's appointed king. He hated the idea of the ruler who had come from heaven. He wanted God's promised king destroyed. And strange as it sounds to us to hate a baby, Herod was certainly not the only person or the last person to hate King Jesus. You see, the truth of the matter is that there is something of Herod actually within each one of us. There is something within the human heart that reacts against the idea that God's king should rule over us, that we should heed his word, that we should take him seriously, that we should bow before him. Bizarrely, there is something within us, something within the people of this world, just as there was something within Herod, something that reacts against the newborn king. Now that's one reaction to the baby of Christmas. And I don't know, it may be the reaction of your own heart today. But as we recognize Herod's reaction to the king, to the newborn king, we do see within the story another instinct, another approach, another response. These wise men from the east, magi from another land, they don't have the faith of Israel. They weren't brought up on the Bible, as it were. They're outsiders, they're foreigners, but something has moved them, something has prompted them to seek out the newborn king. And notice how they come to him. Let me read it again. Seeing the star, they come to Jerusalem saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." That was their attitude of heart. And the Lord was pleased to lead them to the newborn king. Matthew tells us that the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly and with great joy. See, they wanted to find the baby. They were inclined to worship him. They were drawn to him. And by the star, the Lord led them to the stable. They were filled with joy to know that they were on the way, that the star was indeed leading them to the right place. And their reaction upon arrival, it was so fitting. It was so right. We read, "And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then opening up their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh." These foreigners, these wise men from afar, they may not have known much of the God of Israel, but somehow the Lord allowed them to see that this baby was the king sent from heaven above, and they knew that the only response to heaven's king was joyful worship, was to bow the knee before him, was to offer him the very best gifts they had in store. Two very different reactions to the newborn king: resentful anger and joyful worship. I wonder this Christmas Eve, what is your reaction of heart to the newborn king? He came into this world to rule, and the Bible tells us that he will come again to reign. He came to shepherd a lost people, even laying down his life to purchase our forgiveness and our freedom and to make us his own. And for those who bow before him, there is a welcome into his kingdom. There is forgiveness through his death. There is shepherding care in this life and in the life that is to come. You see, these wise men, they actually show us the way. They model for us the correct response. So let me simply ask you this Christmas Eve, will you join the wise men today and rejoice in his coming? Will you bow before him? Will you give him your worship and offer to him the gift of your trust, your faith, your heart, even your life?
Jonathan Griffiths wrapping up our message, King, one of the messages in our series, Name Above All Names. And if you've missed any of the broadcasts in our series, I want to encourage you to come and listen online. Our website is encounterthetruth.org. And I do hope that you'll stop by the website, because not only can you listen to this daily radio program on there, but there are a ton of other resources and ways that we want to encourage you to grow in your walk with Christ. But Jonathan, one of the other things that we would love to do is just begin to get to know those listening a little bit and find out ways that we can encourage each other.
Well, we love to be in touch with our listeners and to find out who's out there, who's benefiting from the ministry. And if that's you, we'd love you to visit the website. As Steve said, we'd love you to sign up for the newsletter so that we can stay in touch, so that we can keep you up to date with some of the new resources that are coming out from Encounter the Truth that we think could be of real encouragement and help to you. We'd love you to come by and visit our YouTube channel, which is growing with a tremendous list of resources we think you'd love to be able to access. So do visit the website, visit our social media channels. We'd love to stay in touch, and we'd love to get to know you better.
Well, we certainly would, and you can come to our website. It is encounterthetruth.org, and you can check out all the resources that we have to help you grow in your faith. And I want to say thank you to those who are giving, praying, and supporting this ministry, because it is through your generosity that we're able to bring you all these different resources from Encounter the Truth. And as we close in on the end of this year, I want to ask you to consider a year-end gift. I know this is a time of year when a lot of people are considering supporting a ministry. And so I want to ask you to consider making Encounter the Truth part of your year-end giving with just a few days in this year left. You can give online when you come to encounterthetruth.org or call us at 833-99-TRUTH. That's 1-833-998-7884. or again, the website is encounterthetruth.org. For Jonathan Griffiths, as well as our producer Mark Bretta, I'm Steve Hiller. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time.